You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear.
Hello, Shoe and Show listeners. Welcome back to an exciting episode where we are diving into the business of the footwear industry, something we do on every episode. I am joined by my partner in crime, Sandi Mines, who, Sandi, you've been in the industry a long time. You know all the players. You know what makes this industry tick. And I'm really excited about our conversation today because we are going to be talking with someone who is driving innovative retail, working with customers every single day. He's a philanthropist as well. He's into some cool kind of sporting things we'll get to. And so there's no better time to have conversations with the retail community, particularly in footwear and particularly in the family channels, because that's where the rubber hits the road, right? And so I want to welcome you, Sandi, to our conversation, but also ask that you introduce today's guest.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Really excited to introduce today's guest. A newer member to FDRA and Fannie. I think he joined within the last year or so. And like you said, I've been in the industry for quite some time, and I was pretty amazed to hear this person's story. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dave Schoengart from Shoe Sensation, the CEO of Shoe Sensation. So welcome, Dave. Say hello to everyone.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Thanks for having me on, and certainly appreciate the opportunity.
Great. So we'll start out by asking you to share with everyone a little bit about your shoe story, how you entered the world of the footwear market. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, it's very similar to the Wizard of Oz story. You know, tornado picks you up and puts you into a place. No, my story goes back many, many years ago. I'm a twin, and he certainly is smarter than me, but I'm the better looking of the two of us. And but at a young age, my dad, who thankfully is still with us, is an engineer architect by trade. His ambition was that we would join his firm. My brother wanted to be an engineer. My problem was I couldn't spell engineer, so I knew it wasn't the appropriate pathway for me. So my focus from a very early age, 8 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And it was not to be in the shoe business. My ambition and my focus was to be a firefighter paramedic. And so all through high school, I trained to be a firefighter. And then when I graduated from high school, I was a certified firefighter in Illinois, in the Chicago area. Went to paramedic school and joined the fire department. When you're a twin, a lot of times you're compared to your sibling, and my parents would look at us and say, well, look at your brother. He's a D1 scholarship athlete, and hey, you're a firefighter. But that's what I wanted to do. And so I had an opportunity to go to college, and I went to Eastern Kentucky University. That is the Harvard of the South, for those who didn't know that. And I studied fire and safety engineering, and my emphasis was explosives and arson investigation and emergency medicine. So how does this manifest into me getting into the shoe business? Well, I didn't have a car and I had no money, so I needed a job. And the first place I found that was hiring was a shoe store. On the sign, it said experienced sales help wanted. I grabbed the sign out of the window. I walked into the store and I said to the manager at the counter, I'm your guy. And she said, great. What experience do you have? And I had to think real quick to myself. I was a paper boy, had a paper route. I worked in a sub shop, and I was a firefighter paramedic. And so I actually had no experience. And so I had to think quick, and I said, I sold shoes and I was darn good at it. And if you hire me, I'll be the best salesman you ever had. Thankfully, she hired me. And that was with the current company I am with today. And
Wow.
so I started part-time sales on the sales floor, worked all the way through college. Um, my college career was a little bit longer than most. I went to school for 7 years, and I'm not a doctor, but stayed in the shoe business, and it's been a fantastic career, and I love every minute of it.
That is one of the coolest shoe stories we've ever heard, and I've heard a lot. And that was one of the ballsiest shoe stories I've ever heard. So, Dave, you came in and faked it till you made it, essentially, and now are running the entire organization. This was a number of years ago. How long ago was this story?
That
And
was
then, what has your journey been? Like, where'd you go from the sales floor all the way up to the CEO? How
Well,
does
it was mid '80s when I joined the business. The business was started by Mike Bernard. It was an entrepreneur who was also in the shoe business in college. And when I joined the business, we had 4 or 5 stores, and they were sit and fit, comfort, family shoe stores. Shoe Sensation didn't exist at the moment. It was, we grew the business one store at a time in the comfort business. And I really had an attraction to service. And I look at my career as a firefighter paramedic serving the community much the way a retailer serves the community as they walk in the store and you get down on your hands and knees and you fit shoes. And it's kind of a weird parallel, but it was very gratifying to me. And I didn't want to be in business, but Mike was a great mentor to me, and he taught me a lot about business, and it helped me get that drive and determination and the motivation to continue to advance. And after college, Mike had said to me, why don't you move to Louisville, Kentucky, and let's build a company? And he said, I'll take care of you. Well, I wasn't smart enough to ask him to put that in writing, but thankfully he was a man of his word. And so I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, our offices are in southern Indiana, right across the river. And it was bootstrap 7 days a week, 12, 13 hours a day. Literally, we would demolition the store, build the store, hire, train the staff, merchandise the store. We did everything. And we just kept building one store after the other. And then my role expanded as we continued to grow and took over the operations of the business. And one of the greatest stories that I have about, operations is Mike called me into his office and said, you are now responsible for insurance. And I said, great. And I'm thinking to myself, well, auto and renters, because that's the only insurance that I know. And he said, well, you're responsible for insurance. And I said to him, well, great. What type of insurance? And he said, all the insurance that begins with the letter I. And again, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know any insurance that begins with the letter I. And so I said, I just don't know what you're asking me to do. And he said, you're responsible for all insurance. Insurance begins with the letter I. And he told me to get out of his office. So, what's a guy to do to learn insurance? Well, I got all the policies and I read them. And if you ever read an insurance policy, it's not great reading. So, it was a company that was, we were young, we were broke, we were aggressive, we knew what we wanted to do, and we just barreled through it. And so we had a fire in a store, and we had a lot of smoke damage, and we took the product from the stockroom and put it on the sales floor. We advertised in the newspaper fire sale, and we virtually sold out to the pair. And we were talking to ourselves, and we said, you know what? It's interesting when you have the shoes on the sales floor compared to having them behind the stockroom. So as any group of young entrepreneurs would do, we got all the shoes we could out of other stores in the warehouse, and we put them in the store that had the smoke damage just to make sure they got a little bit smoky themselves. And we ran a full page ad, and we had the biggest weekend sale that we ever had in the company's history. And so we were on to something. We were on to the fact that if you put the same product, the same pricing on the sales floor compared to behind the stock room, there's a different vibe of the store. And so we started producing our own store fixtures and building what became the first shoe sensation in the late 80s. And so we were certainly one of the early adopters of the open stock, semi-full service concept of a family footwear store. And so stores went from 2,000 feet to 5,000 and 6,000 feet. And the rest is history. We're at 234 stores today. We just opened 2 last weekend. We have about 7, 8 more that are getting ready to open. So it's a lot of fun. Takes our travels to many great places and meeting a lot of great people, and pretty blessed.
That's amazing. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. You're opening up more stores in a tricky time right now, and it seems like the laser focus is on product and service. So I big kudos to you. I mean,
Thanks.
That's the amazing story. I love that. I do want to pivot to a little bit more of a personal story right now, and I've heard that you are a big Kentucky Derby fan. I think someone shared that with us down in DC at the Executive Summit.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your passion. I'm guessing that you work hard and you want to play hard too, and enjoy some fun celebrations and something else to balance everything out. So tell us about your passion for the Kentucky Derby. If you do own horses, tell us about your celebrations.
Well, I've done a lot of dumb things in my life, but thankfully I've not ever purchased a racehorse because, there's only one Kentucky Derby winner, and there's a lot of other people that are trying to be Derby winners. And, when I flew in from Charlotte on Friday, which is Oaks Day, the day before the Derby, I was quickly reminded that the big players are in the horse racing business. As we landed, I saw about 140 private jets sitting on the tarmac at Louisville International Airport. And so none of them had my name on it. So I knew that I need not be in the horse racing business. But, as a transplant from Chicago to Kentucky, there's something special about the first Saturday in May. There's something special about going to the track and watching the horses run. We continue to host the Wednesday before Derby, about 120 people at the track, business associates, clients, vendors. And it's just a magical time of year with, nice spring days and flowers starting to bloom. And as those horses turn that last turn to the, coming toward the finish line, you hear the thunder of the hoofs, and it's just something special. So not only do we love the Kentucky Derby, just love the horse industry in general. And of course, in Kentucky, you have 2 major, business opportunities. One is obviously horse racing, but 2 is bourbon. And so when you mix the 2 together, horses and bourbon, that makes it even more magical. And so, so it is a passion. I'm a bourbon collector. And my wife says I cannot leave the house unsupervised, which is true in many fashions. But so it's a magical time in Kentucky. So yes, we do work hard. We certainly do play hard. And another interesting story about my life is, I have a passion to serve. And when I moved to Louisville, I wanted to continue my fire and EMS career. And I just found being part of a volunteer department from a paid department was a little bit different. And I happened to hear a news broadcast where the sheriff of our county, Jefferson County, which is Louisville Metro, said, if you would like to become a police officer, we are hosting an information session and we will train people to be police officers nights and weekends if you have other life commitments or jobs. And I applied, went to the police academy, worked, went nights and weekends. And so I became a police officer about 30 years ago, and I continue to do it today.
Wow.
So I am I'm a part-time patrol officer in a small community, Charlestown, Indiana, and I love it. And so it's not the smartest thing in the world to do. But again, when I look at it, it's the opportunity to serve your community, and it's the community right next to where I live. And to me, it's a special opportunity to give back.
That's really cool. That's super cool. Although I do find it ironic that the guy who started off trained as a firefighter had a fire in his store that launched him into the model that is today Shoe Sensation and all the success. I don't know what the ending chapters look like for your career. I assume fire will be involved in some way. But the
I
whole
hope
thing
not,
is
but
just,
you never know.
you never know, right?
Yeah.
Let's get back to the business side of things, Dave, and talk about these last few years we've been in. You just talked about your expansion, which is super positive and awesome, particularly in an environment where some other retailers are contracting or pulling out of certain markets. So let's talk more about kind of how you weathered the COVID storm. And as you've pivoted away from that, and we're looking at maybe a little bit softer demand, you're actually expanding your store count. What markets are you in? What is like a key Shoe Sensation market, and how you make those decisions about where you expand?
Well, if we look at our expansion opportunities, we are a Midwest retailer. We stay away from the Far East and the Far West. We recently have opened in Texas, which is a tremendous opportunity for us. But we work under the philosophy that every town needs a shoe store, but can it support one of our size? We like the underserved communities, such as the Walmart model, go where the demand is. We certainly like to be a big fish in a little pond compared to a little fish in a big pond. I stay clear of major competitors because in many cases they just are better than we are. And, let's not fight them head on. Let's go to a smaller community. But certainly smaller communities have difficulties. And, we've been able to figure out how to be successful in communities that most retailers tend to stay away from. And our secret sauce, let's call it, is we really have to build a connection with our community. How do you build trust, and how do you build pathways into the community? And it's amazing what our teams have done over the years, from working with the schools to nonprofits to putting on, country music concerts to, raise money for shoes for kids and to put work boots on our returning combat veterans, our combat troops and veterans. And so it's amazing when you're connected to a community and you listen to the needs of the community, what can be done. And that's really been our success. And so we continue to expand, in the smaller markets, the less served communities. And what we have found is the white space is extremely broad. There's no limit to where you can go. We've identified several hundred markets just in the Texas state alone. So white space is very, very strong. Kind of pivoting to the COVID question, we were very aggressive during COVID. Obviously, the whole world didn't understand how to respond. We chose to be cautious but aggressive. And we said to our teams, because it was important that we continued to pay our employees to keep them engaged in the store, um, you know, if we cannot be opened, how can we still serve the customer? And so there weren't many customers out and about, but we served them in many different ways. We delivered shoes to their home. They came to the store and we gave it to them on the sidewalk. Sometimes we would actually put them in a bag and write their name on it and leave it outside the front door, and they would come pick the shoes up. And so we went as aggressive as we could, but keeping the safety of our employees, at top of mind. If Walmart was open because they were selling, imperative items, why can't we be open? And so we shifted and we started selling hand sanitizer and masks and different things. And if Walmart can sell them, then we can sell them. And so, it obviously was a time where we didn't sell a lot of shoes, but my focus was I wanted to keep our employees on the payroll. And I knew at some point people would start to come back out. And I wanted to be the first to be open. And so we were open 4, 6, 8 weeks ahead of our competitors because we would set sail. 2 weeks would go by. We'd take the sail down. We reset a new one. We saw 7 customers in the store, but we kept the store ready. So when the customers did come back, it wasn't a mad scramble to get the store up to snuff. And so being a little more aggressive paid off with really positive growth.
That's great. And it sounds like you are one with your customer and your communities and the people that you're serving. And I think that's really so important and obviously key to your success. And as you look ahead at 2024 and 25, you're in the market, you're looking at what are the needs of your customers in the future. I'd love to hear a little bit about your buying decisions, how you discover new trends, what markets you play in terms of trade shows. We run Fanny Market, but what do you and your team do to discover new trends and stay, close in contact with your brands? I know you have very popular and key and core brands, but how do you discover
Sure.
new brands?
Well, we always attend the shows. So our merchant team is out there. They're seen. And as they are at the show, they are spending time working on current relationships and opportunities. But more important is that they're out just looking to see what is available, looking for that small, obscure new vendor that may have something different and, getting on the bandwagon quick. And that's the big thing is we get hundreds of solicitations a week from different companies, but it's one thing to get an email or a phone call solicitation, but it's another thing to walk by the booth, be able to look at the product, talk to the entrepreneur that's driving that brand, listen to their passion, listen to what their distribution strategy is, and then work out an arrangement that, one, allows us to test and react. And if we test and we see success, how do we scale? If we test and we don't see success, how do we get out of that business? But the most important thing is test, scale, test and fail fast, and continue to try new things. And really to try and understand what other opportunities are available. Before you saw all the candy in, the auto parts stores and TJ Maxx and all the other retailers, we put candy in the stores. And Is it a big seller? No, but it helps us build the basket. So we're always trying new innovative things to drive our business. And so the most important thing is we're just out there and we listen to opportunities. And it's easy to say, well, we're a shoe store and we don't do something. Well, don't be closed-minded. We are a shoe store. We always will be a shoe store. But what else can we do?
Have you tried bourbon in your shoe store?
We have not, but we've had some bourbon in the stores, as we were building them. But I just don't want to get
on fire.
Right, I just don't want to get into trouble with the local alcohol beverage control people. But no, it's interesting to try new things and to see what sticks. And what's great is if something does stick, it becomes part of the fabric of what we're doing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be chain wide. We're working with one of the southern vendors on doing a pop-up shop during our grand openings. And, can we sell an additional 300, 400, 500 pair of shoes? Well, it's not going to work in the North because they don't understand that brand. But in the South, we're going to give it a shot. Mm-hmm. So always trying new things.
That's cool. You got to be innovative. And Dave, we can't thank you enough for coming on Shoe and Show and sharing your shoe story. It's one of the most interesting ones we've ever had here. And just thank you for your service, both on the police department side and your community. But also, you're so right. Retail is a community service, and it sounds like you guys are just constantly thinking about how you drive service to our customers, and that's to be commended. So, thanks for coming on Shoe and Show.
You're so welcome. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, folks. This has been another edition of the Shoe and Show. We are so glad that you listened. We have a ton of stories like this, maybe not exactly like this, but packed in at shoeandshow.com. Check out our entire library. Make sure you rate us where you listen to us on a variety of different podcast platforms. And if you want to come on the show or you have ideas for the show, you can always shoot us a note at info@fdra.org. We look forward to receiving your feedback, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, Shoe and Show is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.